Hello and welcome to Board Game Gumbo. Today we're unboxing OTOA by Darrington Press games. Darrington Press is a new publishing house for Critical Role, so if you aren't familiar with them, definitely suggest you check it out. OTOA is a game for 3 to 5 players, plays in about 30 to 45 minutes. It's a semi-cooperative game. Here is our rulebook. In OTOA, you are trying to have your sailors be the last one standing in a shipwreck, while a large monster called OTOA is out hunting, essentially, for those same sailors. You're going to play as 2 of the 5 factions in the game, and you're going to share those factions with the players to your left and right. That's why it's semi-cooperative, because you may be controlling the red faction, as well as the player to your right is also controlling the red faction. The game will end when there is either only one faction color remaining on the shipwreck, or where there are 2 separate colored factions and one player controls both of those factions, which will make a little more sense once we get into this. So we've got some stickers here. We'll clearly have to sticker the 5 different factions, and then the Punchboard, which will create the board game. So the board itself is going to start at the captain's wheel piece here. And depending on how you play, this will either start in some random area or always be in the middle of the board. And then we have different pieces for the ship itself. You'll notice that each one has an arrow, and that is important because that is the path that OTOA will travel when he is moving around the board. So as you place these tokens out, and you'll do this in player order, each time you place a token, the arrow has to be pointing towards another token, and only one arrow can be pointing towards a piece at a time. So you're always creating a singular path. It never branches, and the path of OTOA is always obvious. So obviously we've got 2 boards for this. I won't punch out all of this, but this is very nice cardstock. No complaints there. So then we have our little tabs for our player factions, and again, we'll have to sticker these, but the way these work is if you're playing the base game, these are going to be dealt randomly after you place the sailors. But if you're playing the advanced version, you know what factions you control. So if I'm a player and I'm playing here, and the green is to my right and the purple is to my left, those are the 2 factions that I'm controlling. All green sailors and all purple sailors are essentially my faction. So I will win if those are the only 2 colors left on the game board at any point. If green is the only color left at any point, I will win and share that win with the person to my right who's also playing green. So these faction tiles determine what sailors you are trying to save, essentially. Here's the sailors themselves. So we've got sailors all in different colors, although they all do share the same sculpt, or actually they are slightly different, it looks like. If I can focus on that. So there are our sailors. There's slight difference in them, in the detail on their shirts, but for the most part, you're just looking at color. And these sailors will be out on the tiles like so, where you'll have 1 sailor on each tile at a time. Next, we have the only mini in the box, which is our OTOA mini. Very impressive little sea serpent mini. It's nicely detailed. If you have any inclination for painting, it obviously looked pretty good painted up. And this guy is going to move around this board and essentially try to snack on these sailors. So you'll notice that its base is pretty much perfectly suited for the individual ship tiles. And lastly, we have a deck of cards. So a player has several different options on their turn, but mostly those options relate to playing these cards. You can discard cards to get new ones if you don't like your hand, but essentially you're going to be playing cards on your turn to take different actions. And these are all the same deck. They do have very nice back to them. I like the back of them. And They're not a linen finish, but they're a heavy cardboard finish. So I like them. So these cards are going to tell you what you can do on your turn. And so some of them, for instance, this one will advance OTOA. It will move the piece on the board, and anytime OTOA moves, it will eat a figure. So now if this were the state of the game, the person who controls the red and the purple faction would be the winner because of the only sailors left on the game. So advancing OTOA may be in your interest, or it may just be, something you can do. You can play a card and resolve the card, but you can also play pairs. Pairs have to match action and they have to match value. So if I play both of these cards, I would still only advance OTOA one space, but I would get a second action. And again, if I played another set of pairs, I would get a third action. Although you do only have a hand size of 5, so at most you're going to get 3 actions on your turn. But so we have cards for advancing OTOA, and they do advance. They do have different values on them. Sometimes you'll move them once, twice, even 3 times. Other ones are to unleash a tentacle. Basically, OTOA is grabbing a sailor from a certain distance away, either looks like 1 or 2 or 3. And obviously, the person who plays the card gets to decide which direction OTOA grabs from. It does have to be a straight line, and the card does have iconography on the bottom that tells you how they all work. Now you have push. Push lets you move any sailor 2 spaces, and if they run into another sailor, if there's a sailor in their way, they push that sailor ahead of them. So you can kind of move people into the firing line. You have run, which just allows you to move a sailor of your choice away a certain number of spaces. And then I believe lastly, it's take them instead, and that one lets you move the position of 2 sailors. So you can swap the position of 2 sailors to try and get a more advantageous position for your guys. But that's it. That's everything for OTOA from Darrington Press.